Here we are, today's guest.
Oh, Ubisoft, it's time to laugh at you again.
As far as hated game companies go, Ubisoft is one of the GOATs.
The Ubisoft hate isn't merely a meme.
I don't understand what Assassin's Creed is anymore.
And yet, every iteration also suffered from issues.
They have made a lot of generic stuff and don't really treat franchises like Splinter Cell and Prince of Persia with much respect.
But I do believe that over the past 10 years, the fundamentals that made Ubisoft such a great titan of gaming have eroded over time.
7-year low.
With a lovely operating loss of €500 million.
User scores for all of their popular franchises have been decreasing consistently over the last 10 to 12 years.
This is a whole lot of negatives for a very big developer.
This company, who at one point set the industry standard for open-world AAA gaming experiences, has evolved into what is now a shell of its former self.
So Ubisoft shares recently plummeted about 21%.
From my research, I couldn't find any game publishers with a similar stature to Ubisoft that effectively unclimbed the mountain they summited in the mid-2010s.
All of this does make sense because the only way to get Ubisoft games in PC for the last 4 years was Ubisoft Connect or the Epic Store.
You need to scroll through 3 pages of Ubisoft's highest Metacritic scores to find anything that came out in the last 5 years.
Total sales down 14.6% year over year. Total net bookings down 18.3% year over year.
These are words that nobody wants to hear, but Ubisoft is forced to reckon with.
Poor marketing strategies, the unfocused releases, the NFT integrations, the horrible time management.
Overall then, this has meant a reduction in a headcount of over 700 staff since September to under 20,000 people in total.
If this rough financial stretch, which is bigger than any of their main franchises on their own, is accompanied by an all-time low public perception and game reception, what do they have to bounce back with?
Ubisoft actually canceled 3 games. These 3 cancellations bring the number of canceled games in the last 6 months up to 7. Skull and Bones got delayed again. The Mario and Rabbids sequel didn't do very well.
The Sands of Time remake was originally slated for 2021, but was then delayed by a few months for quality purposes, only to then not only be delayed again, but completely change development teams.
Their core Tom Clancy writer, Richard Dansky, he left the company.
We're on the 6th game of Far Cry, but let's be honest, we're still playing Far Cry 3.
Far Cry 3 2, Far Cry 3 3, Far Cry 3 4, Far Cry 3 with Stick, more Just Dance, and some Watch Dogs.
We went from this to whatever this is supposed to be.
Hyperscape was wiped off the face of the planet less than 2 years after it launched. Ubisoft moved away from focused single-player experiences without shoehorn marketplaces into video games that are basically just glorified storefronts.
Looking back on it, when did that change?
Levels, health bars, enemies that are sword sponges, numbers for damage, glowing alerts, obnoxious UI, Zelda-like combat, Goliath-sized enemies for some reason. And you know that whole assassinating thing? Yeah, we don't really do that anymore. It's more of like a 2015 thing.
Had they allowed their team the time and resources to cultivate some of the amazing creative ideas they had while developing the game, maybe the franchise would be in a very different place today.
The Far Cry franchise had a pretty linearly negative progression since 3 from critics and users.
But instead, Ubisoft wanted its double-dipping money fast. And as it stands, this was the point where casual audiences really began to discount Assassin's Creed as just another addition to the soulless yearly release club.
Titles like The Division, the new RPG, MTX Assassin's Creed trilogy,
Valhalla smashed records.
But as much as Ubisoft has seemingly profited by transitioning fan-favorite franchises into large-scale grifts, I think that decision is incredibly short-sighted.
New game every year, new coat of paint, same combat, same map that's just too big, mediocre writing, and the menus even look the same.
Ubisoft has done nothing to refine a now ancient formula.
And the same formula as before.
This is very much more Far Cry.
The new Ubisoft. Mostly generic, pretty empty, and littered with marketplaces.
See, what Ubisoft does is it settles for mediocre, keeps the same mechanics of a previous game that kind of worked, and then adds a few zany ideas on top of that. Like Far Cry 4, I can ride an elephant now. whoa, that really changes the game.
The company is openly struggling to maintain its relationship with its developers, its fans, and its investors all at once.
They'll innovate like crazy, making whole new softwares and technologies dedicated to making them more money. You got Ubisoft Plus, you got Uplay, Ubisoft, which is just Ubisoft Connect, by the way.
They're dumping finances and resources into projects that result in, at worst, nothing, at best, half-finished experiences, and at mid-list, some of the biggest money pits in the industry.
Ubisoft Forward, you got Ubisoft Movies, you got Ubisoft Quartz.
They are tripling down on their big franchises and live services despite how volatile and fatiguing they're getting.
And one of them did so well that they decided to make a game based around it, and that is Rainbow Six Extraction. And guess how they innovated on that game? Or should I ask, guess how they did not innovate any further than they had to on that game mode and made an entire full-priced game from it? I don't even know how you answer that question. It sucked.
And they haven't made anything in the last few years that fans can connect to on the same level of their early 2000s or early 2010s set of games.
These games get made that are supposed to be sequels, but they're pretty much the exact same game as the first one, with a new coat of paint. Maybe it's a new environment, but the gameplay core and objectives are still almost the exact same, with maybe some minor improvements or sometimes more problems than the first game.